listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Brian and Pat.
Welcome, everyone, to Ice Prep Podcast. We were like, yeah, I wonder if the crazy things were going to happen since we last talked. And boy, did some crazy things happen in the NHL. I mean, obviously, the Devils are starting another winning streak. Hopefully that one continues. The Avs have looked pretty good.
Not really. Not against Winnipeg. That felt real good.
There's a whole other thing in Winnipeg, and I don't really want to get into that. We're only going to talk about one jerk today. Not sure if you saw what happened in the stands in that game, but that one's kind of crazy. So there's that whole thing. But it's kind of a crazy week. There's a story that had some coverage and then kind of went away, and now it's getting coverage again for a good reason. A couple days ago, Tampa Bay playing Boston. We've actually talked about Jack Edwards a couple times here on the podcast, and neither of us really like him.
I think most of the time I'm like, whoever that stupid Boston person is, I don't know his name because I don't know announcers' names.
The audio quality of this isn't the best because it's somebody who grabbed it from their TV. But Jack Edwards is the main play-by-play guy for Boston. He is like the biggest homer that exists out there. And he is talking about 3-time Stanley Cup champion Pat Maroon.
Listed at 238 pounds. That was day one of training camp. I got a feeling he's had a few more pizzas between then and now.
Yeah, that's before pregame.
Yeah, right. Fasting. Chris, inadvertent fasting for Pat Maroon is like 4 hours without a meal. But hey, 3 cups in a row. Who can argue with his formula?
So, yeah, that, like, they thought they were hilarious. Just listen to the silence after. There's like, how do we follow this up? People at home are probably laughing, and nobody liked what he had to say. Boston fans right away were very vocal, being like, this is not good. After the game, Pat Maroon spoke about it, and he actually came out on Twitter and had said, I'll pull it up on screen for those watching so you can see his tweet. In support of those struggling with mental health, bullying, and body image, I am making a $2,000 donation in the name of Jack Edwards to Tampa Bay Thrives, and I encourage Tampa Bay Lightning and NHL fans to join me. And since he put that out on November 30th, in under 24 hours, over $50,000 has been raised by Tampa Bay fans and NHL fans. And it's one of those ones that I was kind of going back and forth. Do we want to talk about it? Do we not want to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
But from moment one of this podcast, even discussing making it, talking about things like this was kind of a bit behind the scenes of like, yeah, we want to be able to be open and talk about mental health. I mean, had Movember, your whole thing with that, one of the big things is mental health awareness for men. And the fact that Maroon saw what or heard what was said, which was, there's no defending it ever, what he said. It's not funny. Like, you can't even call it stupid. Like, the words that I want to use, we're not going to use. And over $50,000 donated in Jack Edwards' name because of how stupid he is. For those watching, this is earlier tonight. Tampa Bay is playing in Philly, and their mascot Gritty, who is known for being like the craziest mascot in the NHL, has probably the best sign that we will see in the NHL this year. Pat Maroon skating over to where Gritty is. Gritty doesn't have his jersey on, so Gritty is tarps off in the photo, saying, "Thicc," as in Thicc, and tired of all this body shaming. that whoever is in control of what Gritty says and does, this might be one of the best things ever.
Yeah, and somebody that works at the ice, I was trying to find the tweet. If you were watching, I was like staring at my second screen to try and find where it was, but I couldn't track it down. Someone that works there, whose name escapes me at the moment, she tweeted out that skating by, there was a lot of stick taps from Lightning players, and Pat Maroon hung around there for a bit, and they were all really appreciative, which is really good to hear. And then actually there was another interview again. In my search, I couldn't find it. I saw it briefly today, and then it escaped me, as Twitter does. I don't know. One day it'll escape on its own. But there was another tweet that went out. He even said he wasn't even on the ice when he was making these comments. Pat Maroon was just chilling on the bench, and he's like, "You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make fun of him for no reason."
Like, this is the exact same thing with Steve Simmons in Toronto, who went after Phil Kessel because he didn't like him. Like, that's where the whole hot dog thing started. And to Phil Kessel's credit, what does he do? Wins his first cup, shows up in Toronto, eating hot dogs out of the Stanley Cup is like the biggest FU ever to who I personally think, like, Jack Edwards is probably the worst play-by-play person. Steve Simmons is probably the worst person in hockey, in my opinion. And that's just where I'm sitting with that one. But good on everybody in the NHL who is not named Jack Edwards. And I don't know who the color commentator is with him because he was going along with it. And that is just as bad. But like fans all over in support of Maroon on this one. And that's what you want to see. And especially, like, as dumb as it is, a giant orange monster with googly eyes holding up a sign that says "Thicc and Tired" of all this body shaming. That's the type of stuff that will help this story spread in a good way.
Yeah. And one thing, so there's two things with this too, that it's just like, that makes it perplexing on multiple levels. So one, it's Pat Maroon, and I'm pretty sure most people that are listening to this aren't fans of Pat Maroon. He is exactly what you don't want to play against in the playoffs.
His nickname is literally Big Rig.
He hits people super hard. He is annoying to play against. He seems like a really obnoxious player on the ice, but at the same time, I respect the way he approached this, because, like, yeah, that's what he does on the ice, but he's not a pile of crap human. He is a human being, and they decided, hey, let's dogpile this guy because we're bored, because the game's not going the way we want it to. I don't know. That's
because our team is like the number one team in the league. Like, do you have nothing else to talk about? Like, your team has won 19 games or whatever it was. Like, there's nothing else to talk about. That's the route you go. I
was just going to say, the other thing that blows my mind with Boston is, how is it that this team on the ice is one of the most lovable teams this season and is doing incredible things, and everything around them is just tarnishing their name?
All anybody wants to talk about is not the team. It's what's happening. Yeah, it's
blowing my mind.
Like, if this happened right after the thing with was it Mitchell Miller, then I'd be like, oh, they told Jack Edwards do something dumb to take the pressure off. But now, like, it's
unnecessary.
The Boston,
hockey, it's unnecessary everywhere.
Yeah,
period.
The Boston Bruins, yes, they're great on the ice. What's happening off, I agree. It's yeah, I don't like starting off episodes on kind of a note like this, but especially with the response within the 24-hour period from fans, and then like the Gritty thing is, as I said, as dumb as it is, it will help spread this message and the awareness so much more. And I wouldn't be surprised if both both the broadcasts, and if this national, I haven't looked to see, it will probably become a talking point, and a good one. Like, it
better be.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to pivot away from that one.
Hey, let's talk about the New Jersey Devils.
Okay, not where I was gonna go, but
Segue.
we can segue into the Devils because there is one other bad news note that I do want to bring up. Actually, maybe we'll touch on it here quick.
All right.
Is
Devils in a sec.
Devils in a second. Pittsburgh Penguins. They announced this one yesterday that Chris Letang is out indefinitely after he suffered a stroke on Monday. And I didn't know this. This is actually the second time he has had a stroke. The first one was apparently very problematic. This one is doing well, undergoing a series of tests. So it seems he is fine, but there was a stroke. But just that's news like that is something that we do like to bring forward. So just wanted to get that one out there and wish the best to Chris Letang, who I thought was going to win the Norris last year.
Yeah, no ill will, obviously, all jokes aside, last year, obviously, I was bashing his name, but it was surely out of comedy, I suppose, or just being on this podcast and everything. He is a fantastic hockey player. So again, I also, thoughts with family and friends and everyone around him, and I hope that it's a speedy recovery. And yeah, it was, they said it was because he has a heart condition from birth. So that was the leading cause of it, straight from Pittsburgh themselves. So speedy recovery and everything like that. And speaking of, this is, I think, going to be my absolute best segue that I have ever done. Ever. Speaking of a speedy recovery, let's talk about how the New Jersey Devils bounced back from their loss.
Yeah, the loss. No, they lost the game. I went into the whole thing on that last week. They, at the end of the day, they lost. But yes, what was the thing that we had both said? They have to win 2 of their next 3 games. Otherwise, there's a problem. They've won 3 in a row. They're currently up as we speak, and they are still, well, I guess they did finally get an away loss, which is unfortunate. It would have been nice to see them go for the record there. They sat atop the league for one day because Boston tied them with 19 wins. Boston still has a game in hand. It doesn't seem to be a fluke. Vitek Vanacek, second star for the month of November. Devils get the most ever wins for an NHL team in November, which is crazy. And we're seeing a team that will hopefully make the playoffs. They won't win the cup. They won't make it to the cup finals. But this is what you want to see as a Devils fan, as a hockey fan, and what everybody in the East doesn't want is a young core that is ridiculously skilled, very fast. They will have some grit coming back when Palat comes back into the lineup. Wood is out tonight. They have a potential franchise defenseman waiting in the wings who could join in, as I've said before, a la Cale Makar, potentially in the playoffs, playing for Michigan right now and just tearing things up. And you think that Jack Hughes won't love looking back and seeing his brother playing on the ice with him in the same jersey? Like that, when he got drafted to the Devils, I've never seen anybody more excited. Like, I've never seen a player that excited to be drafted. Just the look on Jack Hughes' face during that. They're legit. And I'll be the first to say, I didn't see it coming. Our season previews, I was like, they bad. They've got some potential, but they're bad.
Yeah, so I did kind of liken it a little bit to Colorado. When you saw, their stretch of bad wasn't as long, unfortunately, as New Jersey's. New Jersey, they went through a few years of, boy, that's rough. But when Colorado turned it around, they squeaked in the last game of the season. I remember sitting in my old apartment and I was just sitting there, and I think I was on voice chat with you, or at least texting you the whole time. It was them versus St. Louis. And if St. Louis won, they were in. If Colorado won, they were in. It was literally the last game of the season. And I lost my mind when they went in. never thought I'd be that stressed in my life. And then they won the Stanley Cup last season. But they were knocked out almost immediately. They snuck in the wild card. Perfectly fine. But even still, it was like, hey, the rebuild is working. Holy crap. Then the next year, they got a bit further. Next year, a bit further. Like, it was this gradual growth. New Jersey's coming out even hotter than they are, but I see it similar in that sense where they've worked hard to build up this core of fantastic hockey players for years to come, and they're finally reaping the benefits of their drafting, their trades, their skills development. They're finally seeing it. It is harvest season, and it will be harvest season for the New Jersey Devils for probably at least 3 to 4 years.
Well, it also helps that we are not 32nd in the league in goaltending. That was like the Devils used 7 goaltenders last year. We were dead last in goaltending. We aren't using who was perceived to be our starter going into the season. He's still injured. He's getting to take his time because Vitek Vanacek is just absolutely killing it. Akira Schmid is killing it. 4-0 or 5-0 now, I believe, considering he got thrown to the Wolves last year. Him and Nico Dawes both got called up, and they were like, what do we do?
I guess we have to learn how to play in the NHL.
And like bringing in some of the trades that happened in the offseason because Pittsburgh had to shed some cap space. It's one of those, everybody was like, yeah, the Devils, they've got the talent, but is it all there? It's nice to see it. As I said, like, it was so fun for me last year watching the Avs play well and watching you and the denial. And I feel like you're getting maybe a bit of the reverse right now because I'm waiting for the floor to fall out. I mean, this is literally the first time this year I have worn anything Devils on the podcast, and they have won 19 games this season.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about your Avs because, as you said, they did lose 5-0 to Winnipeg the other night. And if you remember, the one thing I said with Winnipeg going into the season was if Hellebuck is back, they are going to be scary because he can literally just win the Vezina if he wants to, and he seems to be having one of those seasons. But the Avs, you're still missing like what, a third of your team?
Yeah.
I
know.
Thank God your newest goalie is putting up amazing numbers for you. But I mean, you're still sitting pretty. You're still 3 points
in the league.
3 points safe in the Central right now. You are currently 16th in the league.
Okay, I was way out.
But you also have 20 games played and could very easily jump ahead of LA, who has 25 games played at this point. And as we saw last year with the Avs, they set a home win record for the franchise. It doesn't take long for a team like Colorado to get it figured out and to go. You had your favorite foodie brother finally got called up.
Well, I know you were the favorite foodie brother. There's
he should be.
Now.
One plays for your team.
I know, but he didn't play for London. No, the only reason that I was really excited to see Liam Foudy get into the NHL. He is playing on the fourth line. The reason I was so excited is because I went and I saw
Jean-Luc Foudy.
Yes, sorry, Jean-Luc Foudy. I went to a London Knights game here in London, and Liam Foudy, his brother, played for the London Knights, and Jean-Luc Foudy played for, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Windsor, thank you. So he played for the Spitfires, and I got to see the two of them play against each other, and I was like, that's really cool. I get to see the brothers go head to head. That's awesome. So that kind of stuck with me, and the name is just great. It's almost as good as the other former London Knight, Cliff Poo, but
wasn't there also another recent call-up that the Avs had that you're excited about? It was like a 2018 or 2019 first round.
Oh yeah, and he's injured, so that's cool.
So
Shane Bowers,
he is a true Avalanche. He got injured within like a couple days of.
Yeah, I think it was he played one game. No, yeah, he played one full game, and then game 2, I'm pretty sure he was injured within the first period. So
okay, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but this is honestly, I think, my favorite season ever as an Avs fan because I have no stress. None whatsoever because they won the cup last year. And if they do a back-to-back, sick. If they don't, guess what? They still won the cup in this decade. So
Yeah, it just feels for you. It's like the Montreal kind of playing with house money. Like if good
yeah,
things happen, good things happen. If bad things happen, well for you, you still want to make the playoffs, obviously. But
yeah.
like
I want to keep that going.
you'll be watching the playoffs with a different mindset because it's well, no matter what, like you'll be able to watch a game 7 and not feel super stressed out because you could just be like, hey, we've got the cup already.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I still, when I see them get shelled 5-0, it's kind of like, cool, that really sucks. But it's also, like you said, within perspective because like half of their players are injured right now. And the other thing I wanted to say is I completely forgot about Connor Hellebuck. Not him as a player, but just how he plays because he is Craig Anderson because he decides this is the year that I'm going for the Vesna. And then next year, he's like, I used up all of my energy last year going for the Vesna. I'm going to chill. And
He's
then the next year, he's like, I'm going for the Vesna.
he's a Saiyan. He
He
just needs
is,
to charge up. He needs some time to get the spirit
yeah,
bomb
exactly.
going, and then you can't stop him. Well, I
He
mean,
is a consistently inconsistent goalie year by year, not game by game, but year by year, which like is great that he's having it this year because they're primed to actually break out. But yeah, I don't want them to
because
because
they still don't have a defense, but their forward core has figured things out. Like Wheeler's back.
yeah,
Apparently, they needed a defensive minded coach from Dallas to play very offensive oriented hockey. That's such a weird swap. Like Dallas,
mm,
best thing that happened for them was getting Peter DeBoer. Best thing that happened to the Jets was getting Dallas's old coach, who was known as like just play boring hockey, and the Jets aren't playing boring hockey. So
and
I
then the worst thing that happened to Florida was picking up the Jets' old coach. Who would have guessed that Paul Maurice, who is retired because he lost the room, can't handle the Florida Panthers?
Florida Panthers, as of right
Yay!
now, who are 1 point ahead of Montreal, and Montreal has a game in hand. Florida is currently not in the playoffs. And remember, they still owe Bobrovsky a lot of money for a few years.
Yeah, they really do. And I was looking at all of the goalie stats yesterday, and I was like, where does Bobrovsky show up? And on the NHL app on your phone, he is on none of the lists. But Spencer Knight is.
Yeah, that the second, I mean, mind you, the second that that contract was signed, I think every fan collectively was like, "Why?" We've
Yeah,
seen
you never do
he
that.
is like the streakiest goaltender on the planet. When he's on, he is one of the best. When he's not, he is literal. He doesn't even get to bench warm. Like, so yeah, there's
He's
problems in Florida there. Best thing that happened to Columbus was not re-signing him. Um,
what a bullet dodge there. Whew.
yeah, yeah. There's
That's
mind
yeah.
you, there's some other things with Columbus, but that's neither here nor there.
Just so you understand, for those listening, Sergei Bobrovsky has played 12 games this season, which is probably about 8 to 9 games too many for him.
That's over
Uh,
half
he
the games for the Panthers.
he has lost, or sorry, he has won 4, lost 6, and had 1 OT point. So he played 12 games, completed 10 games, which is a sign. He has a goals against average of 3.84. For context, the Vitek Vanacek has a 2.12, and then his save percentage is an 8.78.
Oh my God,
And
he's the
for
New Jersey Devils
context,
goaltender from last year.
the context, Connor Hellebuck, who is another starter who was touted and Vesna caliber, just like Bobrovsky was at one point, is at a 931. So 878 versus 931.
That's the
And those
difference.
are third place. Third place. Those people are third place in the list. They're not even the best goalies. So yikes.
Yeah, that's the
Yikes,
difference
yikes,
between
yikes.
a team that is sitting fifth in their division and one that is sitting second in their division right now. It's
That's gross.
yeah. Also, just as I'm scrolling through, I didn't realize this that Dallas has tied Boston for the most goals in the league. Mind you, that's like 90% Jason Robertson.
Well, yeah.
I know
So
we'll talk about this a little bit because we are going to do a shorter episode. I think Pat was right.
Pat was right. That should be a segment. We should just have that song that I can just smash a button and then it says Pat was right.
If we get to do it like once a season.
Yeah, exactly. No. Because my takes seem horribly wrong. And then we look back on them and they're like, oh, that actually wasn't that far off. And like half the time I do it because I'm like, this will anger people. But Jason Robertson, what a friggin' player. I'm so glad to see it. And it's the same kind of thing with like Tage Thompson. Give them the right coaching, give them the right opportunities, and they show you how friggin' good they are. And it's so nice to see. Like, I'm really, really happy to see somebody in there that's legitimately actually challenging Connor McDavid for the Hart, for the points leadership. Hell, he's probably even shooting for the Rocket at this point.
He's leading in goals. He's second in points.
He is doing what people thought Austin Matthews would do. And like, that in itself makes me very happy.
Here's what's crazy. So November 21st plays Colorado, 2 goals. November 23rd plays Chicago, 2 goals. November 25th plays Winnipeg, 2 goals. Gets shut out, gets a point against Colorado the next one. Like, 7 goals in 5 games is ridiculous. The fact that he went 2 goals in 3 games in a row I still can't believe that Dallas was like, we can't afford to pay you all this money. Oh, and by the way, they gave Rupe Hintz an $8.25 million contract for 8 years earlier this week. And they didn't have enough money for this kid to give him what... Like, everybody was always like, Draisaitl, well, it used to be McKinnon, had the best contract in the league just because of how that worked out. I think it was Draisaitl. I think now it's Jason Robertson.
Yeah. No, Jason Robertson is going to be... I'm really hopeful this isn't a 1-year thing. That's all I'm saying.
It's not, though, because we saw it last year. We saw it in the playoffs.
That's
well,
true.
Not really in the playoffs, because that series ended in with Ottinger. And they're doing this without Ottinger, too, aren't they still?
No, Otter's back. He's been back for a little bit.
Well,
yeah, it's him and Wedgie. So
he is a legitimate, not just a one-off season. And that's awesome. I mean, it sucks for you because that's literally in your division. And you never want to have... Luckily, the other ridiculous player is in the Pacific, so you don't play him as much. But that's what the game needs, is young players like that who have personalities that are just really good. Because McDavid's good, but as you've said many times, is what you're saying is wet paper bag?
I mean, I've said a bunch of things. He's got as much charisma as a brick. He's got the personality of Melba toast. You know, he's just dry. But no, and it's weird because I don't know why I have a soft spot for Dallas. I think it is because of Ottinger and because of Robertson. It doesn't bother me as much as like losing to the Wild or losing to St. Louis or those two. They don't feel good when those losses happen. Winnipeg, I guess, a little bit. But no, Dallas, as much as it sucked getting knocked out, and it was Dallas, but like it was inevitable when they did that. They were playing against Hutchinson in net. Like,
yeah. Everybody forgets that the year before the Avs won the Stanley Cup, they literally had to go to their third string goalie who won 2 or 3 games and then lost one. Like, he clutched out 2 games and then they just couldn't hold off Dallas anymore. And Dallas ended up going to the Cup final that year. So it's like,
yeah,
they're
and
scary.
They didn't win because Corey Perry was on their team.
And Pat Maroon was on the other side. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it. It is one of the, it's so weird for me because obviously it's not the Wild, so you don't care. But it'd be like me cheering for any other team in the Metro. I don't think I can. Well, I guess Carolina a little bit, just because they're like the lovable like which by the way we didn't mention. Carolina also ended up donating a bunch of money in Pat Maroon's name, which good on them. They were very vocal on Twitter about it, which is not surprising based on the admin of their social account. So
Yeah. No, it's odd, but it happens from time to time. So,
do you want to get your phone ready, Pat?
oh,
So I don't
here
really have too many other things to talk about. I don't know about you.
I mean, I could talk forever, but I don't need to because nobody cares. What's that? What's that? Oh, it is. Games of the week. Here we go.
I like how that one seemed to have an echo to it. For those playing the home game, Pat swore at me before we started this episode because of the game of the week that I picked for last week.
You jerk. What did you pick, Brian?
Let's jump back to Tuesday, November 29th. I'm actually going to pull this one up on the screen. Let's keep scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. Oh my God, there's a game that was 9-8. That's the game that I picked.
Nostra Brian has decided that he just wants to show me up this season, and that's fine. You jerk.
Like
That's two in a row. 2 in a row of like, what the hell? Come on.
what an and it was all the goals were for the most part early too. Seattle doesn't score any in the third. LA scores 2 in the third to bring it to OT. Like it was a 8-6 game at the end of the second. There was a lot of people that were like, this is the potential to be the highest scoring game ever in the NHL. It was the highest scoring one since what, like 2001? And then you have to go back to like the 80s or something like that. I love the chaotic nature of it. I don't know what else to say. It was a great game of the week to pick if anybody had insomnia.
Yeah, no, you're not, because if there's 17 goals, it's not the fastest game in the world. And it goes to overtime. Like when did it end? 3? Yeah, my game was less eventful. I went Monday, November 28th, 8 p.m. Dallas at Seattle, and Dallas won that 4-1.
Dallas at St. Louis?
Yep.
You said Seattle.
Oh. Well,
I pulled it up.
Okay.
You see, here's the reason why Pat probably likes this one more. I'm going to highlight it on the screen for those watching. Oh, I can't highlight it.
Seattle again. It's because it's STL on my sheet, and I keep thinking, I don't know why, because it's wrong, that's the abbreviation for Seattle, because it could be.
Yeah. Pat's favorite part about this, beside the L, says Jay Binnington.
Yeah, no, that felt good. He's a dink. I don't like that guy. Yeah, it was still a good game though. I did watch a bunch of it, and yeah, it was good to see Binnington flop around and Robertson continuing his point streak, because at that point he was at 16 games. So yeah, it was or that one took him to 16 games, which I believe that was the game that gave him
Robertson didn't end up with a point that game.
I literally looked at it and it had his name behind. He had a goal. What are you talking about?
Brandon Saad scored. I've got it up on the screen right now against the Stars.
Extending 17 game point streak. So he had to have scored.
Oh, maybe it got changed after then. I don't know.
Well, I literally just looked at it. I'm looking on my phone right now.
Monday, November. This is
riveting. Riveting entertainment for everyone as I check my phone to prove Brian wrong. Monday, November 28th.
Which is fun because I have it up on the screen.
Jason Robertson, right there.
Oh, you said you didn't say Robertson. That's why.
Why would I be excited for somebody else to
score?
You
said Robert Thomas.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well,
I'll have to roll the
clearly
tapes
I'm
later.
tired.
Yeah,
I'm
so
super tired,
let's
apparently.
go to this week's game of the weeks, Pat.
But the reason, sorry,
Okay.
just 2 seconds. The reason I was excited because that extended the point streak, and that was the game that gave him sole ownership of the highest point streak in franchise history. So big ups for him. That was awesome to see. And
I
that
actually
also
didn't know that. That's how much coverage the Stars are getting this year.
exactly. So for those that didn't know, you're welcome. Yeah, so that is why I was actually pretty happy with that choice of game of the week because a lot of good stuff there.
All right. We know
Brian.
ours aren't the same this week. We'll let Pat go first, and I'll find it so people can see what game it is.
Okay, so I literally right this moment am making an audible.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I did have, and it's weird to say December, I did have Monday, December 5th at 9 p.m. Arizona versus Calgary because I just feel like that's just going to be a good game, especially if Karel Vejmelka's in net because he is a super duper good goalie that's on a horrific team.
So
It's
every
almost-
Arizona goaltender for the last 5 years?
Well, the fact that I can say Karel Vejmelka and I know who I'm talking about, and probably like maybe 5% of the people know, and it's not like, oh, a former goalie. So that was originally what I was looking at, but I've actually switched it for a reason that we just technically talked about. And I'm going with Toronto in Tampa on Saturday for the sole reason, not because it's, the rematch of round one and all that stuff, for the sole reason that Mitch Marner is going for the franchise record point streak. That kid is the reason, and I don't care what anyone else says, that kid is the reason that the Toronto Maple Leafs are as good as they are this season. He has put that team on his back, and the person that helped put it on his back was John Tavares. Those two, it's nice to see Matthews heating up as he should, because that's what he's getting paid for. That's pretty much I should have a shirt that's what he's paid for. But plain and simple, Mitch Marner going for that. I love it for him. He has taken so much freaking heat from Toronto fans, Toronto media, and I'm so glad that he is just playing his game. So I want him to break that record. I want to see that happen because that kid deserves it. So that is the sole reason that is my game of the week, because I will be watching that with my eyes as glued to the screen as possible to see if he gets a tip on any goal.
Yeah, they cut it close in the last one. Empty net goal. Missed the net once, and then they got it back to him. The best part was, honestly, his team's reaction. Did you see the locker room celebration too?
Yeah, that was great. It's great to see it because he deserves that, because he's been and same with if Willie did something like this again, he would deserve it because they've just been raked over the coals. And
Toronto media vilifies they have vilified Marner and Tavares for years, and it's they're your two best players this year, guys. Find a new thing to go on.
Oh, well, they don't lay hits.
Yeah, neither does New Jersey, and look at them this year. So Pat is going Saturday night. I'm going to jump to Tuesday, and this one I've got it highlighted on my screen. We'll see if Pat can guess which game it is on Tuesday. We'll play this game. Can Pat?
I don't even know what games are on Tuesday.
Okay, Pat will go look that one up. For those watching, you can see what game that it is, and I think Pat will agree with me that this should be a very interesting game. As I try to ramble on while Pat looks up Tuesday.
Is it gonna be Seattle versus Montreal?
It is not, because you know that I did say to you off air that I'm trying to not go back-to-back weeks or try and separate my teams a little bit, because last year I kind of stuck with a few teams.
Okay. I'm not sure then.
7 p.m. game. That should give it away.
Tampa, Detroit?
You got it.
Oh, Yzerman.
New Yzerman team against the old Yzerman team. Red Wings, they're just out of being in the top 3 in the Atlantic right now. They have looked very good. They're on the same course as the Devils. They just don't have the same amount of wins right now. Their acquisition of Ville Husso in the offseason is looking to be the best probably goalie acquisition of any team. And that's saying a lot.
No. Samsonov.
Yeah, he's been pretty good for the Leafs. That's true, but
He's literally in second place when it comes to goals against average.
he's been so injured though. That's the thing. And Ville Husso's played really well, but that to me, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Like, yeah, the Leafs play the Stars so that, at 8:30, so you can kind of watch that one later on as well. It should be an interesting game. I like the Yzerman narrative there. The Red Wings have looked really good this year. Their line where the shortest player is literally Tage Thompson's height is hilarious to watch. So that's my game of the week for this week. We'll see if I can go 3 for 3 and having absolutely ridiculous games.
I don't want you to, but for some reason, we both chose Tampa. That's funny.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because you call it audible.
Yeah. But I will still stand by that my original choice of the game that will just be wild to watch will be Arizona versus Calgary. That should just be a poop show to keep it as PG as we can. Yeah.
So those are our games of the week. I honestly, the fact that we both chose Tampa, I'm fine with that.
They play good hockey. Like,
yeah. And literally not intentional after all the talk we did about Maroon, by the way. We didn't plan that at all. It's just like, oh, good games. So,
well, and also just want to point out, Stamkos got his 1,000th point in the game tonight. So a lot of good things out of Tampa, or at least a lot of good stories out of Tampa. Let's just say that.
Well, I think we will call it there. Talking hockey, Pat. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to anyone and everyone that supported myself or any other person during Movember. It's super appreciative. I didn't hit my goal because, holy crap, I realized how high I set that bar, which was way too high. But as a team, the team that I was on raised almost $10,000, so about $8,300. So that was pretty cool to see. Over $8,000 raised just from a couple folks looking weird. So yeah, thanks again for everyone, and I hope at least one of you reached out to a friend and asked how they were doing, because this time of the year really sucks, especially since it seems like the whole world is on fire and there's nothing that we can do to stop it. But take care of yourselves for that last reason.
Are you okay, Pat?
Yeah, I'm just tired. I don't know. Like the past 2 weeks, I've been going back into work, like physically going into my office, and I walk to and from work, and I forgot how tired I get when I don't just have to like get up and just walk out the door that's right over there, and I'm home. So yeah, it's kicking my butt. So I'm just losing it a little.
But hey, yeah, behind the scenes, how nice is it being able to have your dog with you on the Thursdays, though?
Yeah, that's really cool. I never thought that I would
Props
be
to
able
your
to bring
workplace for that initiative, by the way. Like, there's where my wife works, they bring in support dogs all the time just to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would love if I could have my dog sitting there with me. Just, you having a bad day, pet the dog, you're good.
Yeah, it was great. He was so good. It was the first time I ever brought a dog into work today, which was also probably the reason why I'm so tired. Because I was just like, "Are you going to be good? Are you going to be good?"
Alternatively, the most
great.
work Pat's ever done.
No. So I hope my boss isn't listening, but no. She won't listen. She's too obsessed with Taylor Swift. Sorry.
Well, I think that's a good spot to end it on a happy note there. We will talk to you all again next week because, as Pat reminded me, it's December. Maybe I'll get some decorations up behind me for next week. There's my goal.
Maybe I'll have an idea of what I'm going to buy for gifts, because I have both Christmas, Hanukkah, and about 4 birthdays to buy for. So it is the most broke time of the year.